Elton John's conductor and arranger Paul Buckmaster has died. He was 71. I'm John Bowden from rockhistorymusic.com. He played a huge role in Elton John's early sound. In fact, that was him playing cello in 1970 on The Greatest Discovery. Remember that opening from the self-titled Elton John album? He was an arranger on that LP, and even though the song, Your Song, would have been great just as an acoustic piece, Paul Buckmaster gave that song wings and almost made it heavenly. His role grew with the next album, Tumbleweed Connection, just a few months later as conductor and arranger. And who could forget how he really brought thunder to one of Elton John's symphonic masterpieces, Burn Down the Mission. In 1971, Paul Buckmaster was right beside Elton John and his songwriting partner Bernie Taupin as they were putting together the soundtrack to a film that didn't do well, but its music became a cult favorite for a lot of Elton John fans. Friends. It's easily one of Elton John's most symphonic albums and a great place to really listen to Paul Buckmaster doing what he does best. He was musical director, conductor, and arranger on Elton John's very underrated, I think, Madman Across the Water from 1971. This one holds a special place to me because it's my all-time favorite album, and it happened to be the very first album I ever bought. Buckmaster helped create that almost melancholy mood in the first two songs on the album with Leave On and Tiny Dancer. And for me, it was the first time that I really heard and noticed symphonic rock on deep tracks like Indian Sunset from Madman Across the Water, about a Native American leader and his last stand, and the gospel-flavored Rotten Peaches, and a little-known song to some people at least about betrayal called All the Nasties. Buckmaster was back in the beginning of 1973 with one of Elton John's strongest pop albums, and I say that because every song from Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player sounded like a hit. Buckmaster was doing on this album what he did best, fortifying the story, creating the mood, making sure you got it, taking you on that journey. And he did it well on two songs from this album, Blues for Baby and Me, one of the prettiest songs Elton John has ever recorded, should have been a hit, and the thunderous Have Mercy on the Criminal. I remember not liking it when I first heard it as a teenager, thinking, because it comes in so strong with its symphonic thunderous opening. It's now one of my favorite Elton John songs of all time. He also worked on Elton's 1976 underrated Blue Moves and A Single Man the following year, as well as Made in England in 1995 and Songs from the West Coast in 2001. Paul Buckmaster gave Elton John almost a different layer. Just when you thought you loved Elton John, you'd hear Paul Buckmaster do something wonderful, giving Elton almost an extra personality, almost sealing the deal. And even before Elton, Buckmaster worked on another classic, David Bowie's Space Oddity in 1969. Another groundbreaking tune in the history of rock. Then there's his string arrangement on Harry Nilsson's Without You in 1971, a song that's been covered so many times. And not much later than that, he gave the audience goosebumps again on a song that we still don't know who it's about, You're So Vain. That sweeping symphonic arrangement at the end, when you say it gives the song wings, I mean, nothing works like this. Again, creating almost an extra, almost magical mood to the end of the song. He also gave Train that lush blanket on their signature song, Drops of Jupiter in 2001. Buckmaster also worked with Miles Davis, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Grateful Dead, Stevie Nicks, Solo Jagger, as well as the Stones on Sticky Fingers, Kenny Loggins, Lionel Richie, Celine Dion, Counting Crows, Collective Soul, Faith Hill and her husband Tim McGraw, Tears for Fears, Carrie Underwood, Bon Jovi, Michael Bublé, Guns N' Roses, Taylor Swift, Heart, among others. Everything Paul Buckmaster did was beautiful. He was plugged into something that I will never be able to understand. He was able to almost cherry pick the most gorgeous emotions through his string arrangements. And this was not easy to do. This is where I ask you to spread the word about Paul Buckmaster. Because a lot of Fairweather friends have no idea who he is, but trust me, we know. They've all heard him. Not hundreds, but thousands of times through the music of all the artists that we've talked about. He could make an album cut sound like the most gorgeous deep cut in the history of the rock and roll era. It's almost like he painted beauty onto things that made us literally stop and stare at the speakers. He was that good. I reached out to him a few years ago for an interview. I never heard back, didn't expect to. He wasn't famous for interviews, but he was on my bucket list of artists that I really, really wanted to talk to. The stories he could have told. He was just a man who could make you feel medicinally enhanced by just listening. We lost a great man. Paul Buckmaster, thank you. You made me cry a few times, but mostly I remember the goosebumps through the years. May he rest in peace. I'm John Bowden. Make sure you comment on our videos, share our videos, and subscribe to our channel. This is Rock History Music.